Are there scientific Christians? Or are us Christians just simply weak-minded, blind faith-filled sheep with no interest in any science past what we need to graduate high school? Sure, Galileo and Newton were Christians, but that was hundreds of years ago when scientists had to believe in God or face persecution from the church. Today's scientists are far too smart to believe in such fairy tales. Today we're going to talk about Christian scientists. Before we begin, go ahead and hit that subscribe button and the little bell notification so that you will be alerted when we post new videos. The reason I wanted to discuss this topic was after seeing an exchange between Greene, a theoretical physicist, as he was on Joe Rogan's show talking about, well, you know what? You just watch.
But I have had conversations. Many of them are respectful as opposed to antagonistic, where the view is that I am wrong-headed, that I am missing the point. And some of these religious folks are fantastically accomplished scientists.
That's weird.
So in that exchange, you see Greene commenting that some of the religious folks he's met in his academic circles are actually fantastically accomplished scientists. To which Joe Rogan responds, "That's weird." This made me laugh, but it really highlights a huge problem surrounding belief in religion, which is basically the belief that only people with limited education or yokels from the South still believe in a higher power. Joe Rogan has interviewed dozens of scientists over the years, but evidently hasn't met one yet that is a Christian. He's actually surprised here. But let's continue.
Yeah, I mean, I went to a gathering. It was called Science and the Spiritual Quest. I thought everybody's going to basically say the same thing. There could be a God. There's no evidence for a God. We've got the laws of physics, and we're going to just press forward under the assumption that physics is all there is until the clouds part and God reveals him or herself or itself to us, and at that point we may change our tune. It was not one note. I was the only person who had that perspective in the room. Everybody else was coming at religion from a very different way of thinking about the world. In fact, there's one Nobel laureate in the room who got up and sang psalms as part of his presentation. And I was sitting there and I was like, what is happening here? This is so unexpected to me. And what it really meant was I was so close-minded into the varieties of religious engagement that happen in the world.
Greene was not only shocked that there are intelligent God believers, but also admits that he was closed-minded to religious ideas outside of his own scientific belief system. Do you see the stigma of ignorance surrounding Christianity? Who are these intelligent Christians of which Greene speaks? In what remote jungle have they been hiding? Evidently, they are all around us, everywhere. They walk among us, unnoticed, blending in like serial killers. Okay, that's a bit much, but his analogy isn't far off. They are everywhere. For those of you who have begun to doubt your faith because you've been listening to the ramblings of atheist scientists, consider the following Christians. John Lennox is a professor of mathematics at Oxford. He holds multiple doctorates, speaks multiple languages, and has debated many atheists, including evolutionist Richard Dawkins, Michael Shermer, Peter Singer, and the late Christopher Hitchens.
I am not remotely embarrassed here in one of the best universities in the world to say I'm a scientist and a Christian, because arguably Christianity gave me my subject. How is it that we've got to the situation in the 21st century where leading scientists like Stephen Hawking tell us we've got to choose between science and God?
So you see, Lennox is a Christian. In Richard Dawkins' book, The God Delusion, Dawkins asserts that if there is a God, we are forced to ask, who created God? In their debate, Lennox challenges him on this assertion.
I want to address the who designed the designer question, because it's the old schoolboy question, who created God? I'm actually very surprised to find it as a central argument in your book, because it assumes that God is created. And I'm not surprised, therefore, that you call the book The God Delusion, because created gods are by definition a delusion. After all, you are arguing that God is a delusion. In order to weigh that argument, I need to know what you mean by God. And if you say, if there is a God, you have to ask who created God, that means that you reduce to thinking about created gods. Well, none of us believe in created gods, Jews, Muslims, or Christians. And I think that argument then is entirely beside the point, and perhaps you ought to put it on your shelf marked celestial teapots where it belongs.
Oh, but Lennox isn't the only smart Christian. Ever hear of Francis Collins?
I'm Francis Collins. I had the privilege of leading the Human Genome Project. I'm intensely interested in the topic of science and faith. And right now, I'm the director of the National Institutes of Health in the United States. Well, as I became a believer, people around me suspected that my head was going to explode. That now has been 42 years since I made that transition from atheist to Christian. And I've never found a problem here. And it troubles me greatly that so many people see these as worldviews that are in conflict. I think the conflict is one that we humans have managed to create quite nicely, but I do not believe it's baked at all into the fundamental truths of science and fundamental truths of faith. As long as you're careful about making sure what kind of question you're asking, you can find truth. These are the two books that God gave us. The book of God's words, the Bible, and the book of God's works, nature. And those books can't very well be in conflict. And if they are, or if we think they are, we've probably made some kind of error in our interpretation or one or the other.
Yeah, that guy's a Christian. So is this guy.
I got my PhD in the field of organic chemistry, postdoc at Stanford University. Joined the group of a man who was going to win a Nobel Prize in chemistry. Voted one of the top 50 most influential minds in the world. I was a visiting scholar at Harvard University. I've spoken at every major university in this country, have over 650 research publications, voted the R&D magazine Scientist of the Year. I'm in the National Academy of Inventors. I'm a member of the American Association for the Advancement of Science, over 120 patents. But more than any of that, what means the most to me is that I'm a Jew who believes that Jesus is the Messiah.
Yeah, James Torr. Well, I've got a bachelor's in criminal justice from Radford University. Consider, too, Professor William Lane Craig and how he easily thwarted Professor Atkins' assertion that science can prove anything.
We may not have a woodshed on board, but that boy is gonna get a whooping anyway.
But do you deny that science cannot account for everything?
Yes, I do deny that science.
So what can't it account for?
Well, had you brought that up in the debate, I had a number of examples that I was going to give. I think there are a good number of things that cannot be scientifically proven, but that we're all rational to accept. Let me list 5. Logical and mathematical truths cannot be proven by science. Science presupposes logic and math, so that to try to prove them by science would be arguing in a circle. Metaphysical truths, like there are other minds other than my own, or that the external world is real, or that the past was not created 5 minutes ago with an appearance of age, are rational beliefs that cannot be scientifically proven. Ethical beliefs about statements of value are not accessible by the scientific method. You can't show by science whether the Nazi scientists in the camps did anything evil as opposed to the scientists in Western democracies. Aesthetic judgments, number 4, cannot be accessed by the scientific method because the beautiful, like the good, cannot be scientifically proven. And finally, most remarkably, would be science itself. Science cannot be justified by the scientific method. Science is permeated with unprovable assumptions. For example, in the special theory of relativity, the whole theory hinges on the assumption that the speed of light is constant in a one-way direction between any 2 points A and B. But that strictly cannot be proven. We simply have to assume that in order to hold to the theory.
But you're missing the whole...
So put that in your pipe and smoke it.
Yeah.
Wow, these debates can turn brutal. That wasn't part of the debate. That was... Oh, never mind. What about astrophysicist Hugh Ross? I'm pretty sure he's a smart guy.
And I remember one night at age 19 calculating the probability that these statements about future science and history could have been recorded by people who were not inspired by the one who's in control of history and who created the universe, and recognized that this book had a higher degree of reliability than laws of physics that we trust with our lives literally every minute of the day.
I thought he used a wheelchair. He isn't Professor X, you idiot. Listen, if you want to learn more from intellectual Christians, whether they be scientists, philosophers, or theologians, I encourage you to check out RZIM Ministries, founded by Ravi Zacharias. He has many brilliant people who speaks on behalf of his ministry. Also check out the Discovery Institute, a non-profit based in Seattle. They are dedicated to the promotion of traditional Western principles and institutions. Also check out the Socrates in the City YouTube channel, hosted by Eric Metaxas. Eric hosts a variety of guests from scientists to billionaires as they discuss issues related to science, culture, and God. Hey guys, if you like this video, go ahead and hit that subscribe button, and also, as I mentioned before, the bell notification. Go ahead and give us a thumbs up and hit that share button. Maybe you might want to check out one of our other videos. A link should be appearing around here up somewhere. And geez, why don't you just give us some blood while you're at it too? Okay, yeah, I guess it's a bit much. But anyway, we love you guys. Have a blessed week.